Hi, I'm Judy Tyabji. Thank you very much for joining us today as we take on another important subject. And I'd want to first tell you that there are going to be a number of things we introduce to you during this show. And I'm actually going to give you some of my opinion toward the beginning of the show instead of the end, because I want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable being part of the discussion today. Today we're going into the heading of Aboriginal issues. We are still trying to get a program together on Gustafson Lake, believe it or not, hoping for the public inquiry comments for the spring. We're going to return to the Nisga'a deal, which is under evolution, and the Sechelt Indian government agreement that they have with the provincial government, which has also fallen by the wayside. I don't know what it is about Aboriginal issues, but today we're going to talk about the future of Natives, and it comes in response to the federal government's announcement on a compensation package, or what they're terming to be a package for social programs for Aboriginal people in Canada. Now, the federal minister claims that there will be $350 million set aside for programs for Aboriginal people throughout the country, and there seems to be some relationship between this and the residential schools. But once you actually sift through what was said, as opposed to what we think she said, I think you'll find that not only did they not apologize for anything that the federal government did, that $350 million may never actually trickle down to the people in the bands. But before we do that, we want to give you a bit of a background on Aboriginal issues, especially as they relate to residential schools. Now, I have to give you a very strong warning here. If you have children watching the program with you, you may ask them to leave the room for this, or at least be able to explain to them what they're about to see. This comes out of a special that Harry Manu put together called Dyed White. It was something that Czech TV strongly supported, and it's about residential schools. It's very disturbing. Take a look.
Some nights I have that nightmare where I can't. It feels like I'm really screaming hard, but nobody hears me. I can't get out of it.
He would put hickey marks, like, on private parts of my body while he masturbated.
He did it hard,
And,
because it felt like my skin was literally going to peel off. And I was so red, and it in my ass and in my crotch area that I could hardly walk for a long time.
One of the instructors used to invite me to his room. You know, we're going to talk about the Bible. And I went to his room to talk about the Bible. We used to take turns in reciting passages of the Bible. But before long, it got into other things. And I remember plainly what we used to do there. He'd ask me to take off my clothes and then lay on my left side. And he'd take off his clothes and crawl in behind me. And he'd put his penis between my legs and simulate a sex act. And when he was finished with what he had to do, he used to tell me to get up off the bed and wash myself and get down on my knees and pray to God for forgiveness.
I was never afraid, but I was always afraid. And this is also my first time back in 30-some-odd years, and I feel sick.
With the federal government bent on assimilating them into white society, and the churches bent on dishing out a heavy dose of morality laced with discipline, Native children experienced extreme culture shock.
It was made clear that they were going to beat the language out of you. Because that was the first time I've ever been hit for talking our own language.
English was the only language they were allowed to speak.
But I remember going up the stairs and walking in the building, and immediately, as soon as we walked in, before I could even turn around and say goodbye to my mom or wondering what the hell's going on, I was grabbed by the arm.
Charlie Thompson was 9 years old when he was left at the school. Years later, when he became a parent, he handed out the same discipline he had learned to take.
They had to be perfect. They had to do things right. If they didn't, I strapped them. That was my punishment to my little boys, little guys. And one of them blurted out one time, "Geez, I hope he doesn't use the stick because the stick hurts more than the strap." So I started using the stick because I know it hurt them more. We were brutalized for what? Because we were different? We were supposed to be assimilated? To become a product of what? The people that were abusing us? Were we to be like them? That was civilization? Pure and simple, it was abuse. Because we were children. We were 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Today I took some time to actually watch the minister's statement, most of it, and many of the statements that followed from the Aboriginal community. I think you need to know two things. First of all, that what the government said was that they were sorry that the Aboriginal communities had gone through this kind of pain. So for example, if I hit you, I could say, "I'm sorry that you're in pain." That doesn't mean I've apologized for having hit you. And that's part of the problem, and apparently the government is worried that they're going to be sued, and so they will not actually apologize for what the state actually set out to do to the Aboriginal communities. The second thing you need to know is that the Aboriginal leadership is divided on how they feel about what the government is doing. Many of them are not very happy with the way things are going. And also that it doesn't seem to be that the bureaucracy of the Department of Indian and Northern Affairs will be touched other than to add to it. As far as I'm concerned, they're already spending way too much money in the industry of the Aboriginal people. We have with us Ron Hamilton today. We're going to be taking your calls. And as I say, we want this to be a wide-ranging discussion. We'll be right back after the break.
We both have colds. Why is he upping at him? And I'm so tired and cranky and headachy, I can't even get started. Why? Because last night when he said...
Let's take NyQuil so we can feel better in the morning.
I said, why? What's the nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, stuffy head fever so you could rest medicine got to do with morning, silly? He took it. I took these. He got rest. I didn't. Why?
Vicks NyQuil, the nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, stuffy head fever so you can feel better the next morning medicine.
If you've ever tried secret antiperspirant, you know there's something working. It's dryness. And now there's a completely new secret that goes on invisibly. New Secret Sheer Dry. It's the dryness protection I want that's strong enough for him, but made for me. And it glides on clear. For sheer protection, give me strength. Give me New Secret Sheer Dry. Strong enough for a man. But it's clearly for you.
Until now, the problem with wireless phones is being heard clearly above the background. Thanks to BC remove the background, and it all becomes amazingly clear. The Digital PCS Network. Be free. BC Telemobility.
This is Norwalk, the furniture idea, Victoria's most original furniture store. Norwalk means custom-made furniture built for your lifestyle by a name you can trust. Take a look around. You'll find an affordable selection of styles, in-stock fabrics and leathers to suit any decor. This beautiful custom-made furniture is handcrafted with a lifetime warranty and delivered to you in about 35 days. You dream it, we build it. Norwalk, the furniture idea, as unique as you are.
Aboriginal people suffered decades of abuse at residential schools, and today the federal government has come out with an announcement which they believe is the first step in providing a better future for Native people, for Aboriginal people. Federally still called the Department of Indian and Northern Affairs, although we abandoned that tag in BC a while ago. We have with us Ron Hamilton. Thank you for joining us. Now, you're the author of a book on Indian residential schools, and we actually didn't want to clutter this show with too many guests. We just wanted you to be the person who could come and talk to us about this. First of all, what do you think of the announcement that's come out of the federal government today?
having not listened to it directly, I really have a hard time making any response to it.
Okay, so having said that, you've read some of the background to the minister's statement. The statement of reconciliation, I'm not sure if you...
Little bits and pieces.
Yeah. What's your general idea of the direction the government's going?
I think that the government, in its background material, said that the effort was to create a renewal of the relationship between Aboriginal people and the governments of Canada, and that's a self-serving.
Why is that self-serving?
Self-serving act. Canada wants to stabilize its economy. Canada wants industry to proceed unimpeded, and I think that many people, certainly politicians across the country, recognize that Indian people represent, as long as they're pressing land claims and other kinds of issues, an impediment to that financial process, that business.
When I was introducing the show and I was talking about some of the other issues, we actually have a very difficult time sometimes putting together a program on the Nisga'a or on Seashell or on the Gossoson Lake situation, because it's very fluid. 1 week it looks like there's an agreement in principle. The next week everybody's backed away from the table. But throughout this whole thing, there are hundreds of millions of dollars being spent across the country on lawyers and accountants and negotiators and bureaucrats. What do you think about the $350 million announcement that's come out today?
Well, I think Harry Daniels is right on when he said much less money has been committed to the Aboriginal redress that Canada was talking about this morning than was committed to not building helicopters.
Right. Okay, and I know that I think it was Marilyn Buffalo as well for the Aboriginal women was very strongly upset about what had happened. For people who are outside the Aboriginal community, though, sometimes we look at that and we say, well, where are the solutions? I mean, I wasn't personally part of the abuse that went on at a residential school, and I think it's horrifying what happened. But I'd like to be part of something constructive in the future. So where is that solution?
I think the solution begins with Canada itemizing what exactly it is that they did to us. I think that Canada needs to recognize and needs to describe its history of creating fundamentally racist legislation, adopting the word Indian as a legal definition, creating a body of legislation called the Indian Act, which is a racist process that the government took part in.
Continues to, yeah.
That Canada needs to itemize what it did. Canada needs to describe what it did. Canada needs to admit what it did. Canada needs to apologize for what it did. And I suppose if when all of that's done, they have the energy, the strength, the wherewithal, they should ask for forgiveness.
And that would take, you think that would take us a long way?
I think that would take us a long way. And then I think that it's necessary for this process, this history, to be understood, for people to understand where we are today. Okay. It's necessary for the departments of education across the country to adopt a policy of teaching that history to all children.
Okay. I think a lot of people would be happy. I mean, I know I'd like to know what was really going on. We're going to share with people a short clip from the federal minister, and federally it is called Indian Affairs, although provincially we call it Aboriginal Affairs. The Federal Minister of Indian Affairs had quite a few things that she said today about what they call the Statement of Reconciliation, and we've pulled a clip for you, so here it is.
We wish to emphasize that what you experienced was not your fault. It should not have happened. To those of you who suffered this tragedy at residential schools, we're deeply sorry. In dealing with the legacies of the residential school system, the Government of Canada proposes to work with First Nations, with Inuit, and with Métis, the churches and other interested parties, to resolve the long-standing issues that must be addressed. We need to work together on a healing strategy to assist individuals and communities in dealing with the consequences of this sad era of our history.
And we're going to go to the phones now, and as I say, we want this to be as wide-ranging a discussion as possible, because we're all part of the solution, I would assume, right?
I agree.
You're supposed to nod. Yeah.
I think we all can be.
Okay. Let's first talk to Jeff in Surrey. Hi, Jeff.
Hello.
Hi, go ahead.
Well, I'm like a, what you call that, legacy from the residential school system.
Right.
And I'm, you know, I could never function in life because I never had no living skills, and And, you know, I used to have a large family and 10 people, and like most of them have committed suicide.
Jeez. And you went to residential school in BC, I guess?
Saskatchewan.
In Saskatchewan.
Yeah. This happened all over Canada, not just BC here.
Right. Well, thank you very much for sharing that with us. I guess that's not a story that's unique. That's something that you wrote when you wrote your book about residential schools. You must have heard that from a lot of people.
Common experience, people's lives shattered, people from large families separated from their families by force, sometimes by law, and resulting in a lifelong separation. People being unable to maintain any kind of family ties with brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers, trust being broken.
Right. Okay. Well, we're going to talk to Cheryl now in Victoria.
Hi, Judy. Sorry, I've got a piece of apple in my mouth. Just a sec. Eating my lunch here. Okay. Well, I'm really happy that you're doing this program. I will identify myself as a white person. My view is that I just feel we can't do enough to make amends. I think the time has come as a responsible people to make restitution to our Native people, to make the proper apology, not the one that says we're afraid of saying this because we're going to spend too much money. Healing's never going to begin unless we take that responsibility. The other point I want to make is we are the government. You know, we can say, well, the government's made this announcement or is doing this. Right. We are the government, and as white people, we have to stand up and say, no, this isn't good enough. Okay. We need to make amends. I know because I was raised in an abusive background. My life's been ruined. And to hear that last man say that most of his family has committed suicide, come on. Yeah. Let's get with the program, eh?
Okay, well, thank you, Cheryl. And I should say that it's not just white, but we brown people, I think, also. I'm not Native, but I am brown. And BC has a number of people from different backgrounds. But that is part of it, I guess. To what extent do you find people from outside the Aboriginal community reaching out to try to be part of the solution?
Well, I find more and more people on the streets in Port Alberni, and my life has largely lived in Port Alberni, are understanding. They're trying to understand. They're communicative. They ask a lot of questions. Of course, there's got to be the ever-existing contingent of rednecks, people with rednecks in Port Alberni.
What do they say? What does a redneck say to you about all this?
Redneck says to me, you spend too goddamn much money on Indians.
Well, I agree you spend too much in Department of Indian Northern Affairs.
Rednecks say to me, you people fish when I can't.
Oh, I see.
Rednecks say to me, why should you people have any right that we don't?
Okay. And then what do you say?
I say to them, it wasn't me who guaranteed me those rights. Right. Canada, in relationship with people whose lands that they occupy, made arrangements a long time ago. Those arrangements are of a legal nature. You perceive them, because of your redneck, in a racist way. We don't see them that way. We see them as part and parcel of agreements that were made between two parties.
So you can renegotiate it if you want, but don't blame you for it.
Yeah.
Okay, we have to take a break. We'll be back with more of your calls. We're talking about the future of Native people, Aboriginal people. We'll be right back.
Tyabji is brought to you in part by Metro Lexus Toyota, leaders in customer satisfaction.
It's the start of a new year at the Vancouver General and UBC hospitals, but some things never change.
Phil, we still have an urgent need for new equipment. Right now, we really need a neuronavigation system to improve the quality of care for our patients, and it costs in the neighborhood of $500,000.
Now you can help through the Millionaire Lottery.
You could be a millionaire.
When you buy a ticket in the Millionaire Lottery, everyone wins.
Just 6 months.
But my instructors made it easy.
Fast forward to a new job. Call CompuCollege School of Business today. Make one phone call to CompuCollege School of Business, and in as little as 6 months, you could fast forward to a career in business, secretarial, computers, or one of many other diploma programs. Call CompuCollege School of Business now, and you could graduate in as little as 6 months. Whether you're preparing for a new career, upgrading, or retraining, call CompuCollege and fast forward to your new job today.
It's here. The Check TV Grizzlies giveaway at the Auto Show, January 9th to 18th. Brought to you by Check TV, the Province and Rock 101. Enter to win Grizzlies tickets and souvenir packages daily. Plus, be eligible to win the grand prize, a suite for 10 to watch the Grizzlies play Sacramento this spring. Check the province for contest details or enter at the show. Visit the show January 10th to meet Antonio Daniels in person. Grizzlies fans receive 2-for-1 admission to the Auto Show at BC Place with any ticket from any home game. It's here.
The Make-A-Wish Foundation of Canada makes wishes come true for children with life-threatening illnesses. Tara's wish was that her dog Boomer appear in a national television commercial. Wick is a corporate parent to this and 20 other television and radio stations across Canada. We support the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Like you, we care about this community. So anyway, this is Boomer, and this is Tara, and this is a wish come true.
Today we're talking about the future of natives. Our guest is Ron Hamilton. He's a historian and a writer, and somebody who has quite a bit of background on the residential school situation. And we'll go straight back to the phone lines. We'll start with Trish in Langley. Hi, Trish.
Hi, Judy.
Hi, go ahead.
Hi. I think that the Indians were segregated away from society, and except for the kids pushed back and shoved through the schools,
Right.
and that segregation, like Canada's supposed to be the most human rights supportive country in the world, yet what we've done, our ancestors or whoever the government, the bureaucracy has done to the natives, it's still continuing today, that they're segregated from 30 years ago, and there was no Indian languages taught in public schools. When I was in public school, I was forced to learn French, but there's no Indian languages. There's no, there's too much segregation. It's prejudiced.
Okay, well, thank you for that. That's an interesting perspective, actually, Indian languages. To what extent are there still live Aboriginal languages in Canada?
Well, in different areas, of course, there are speakers in probably just about every language, but in my own community, there are very few people fluent in our language.
And that's
in other
Chalmers,
communities,
or?
yes, in other communities around the province that I'm aware of, very few fluent speakers.
Right.
Having said that, almost every Aboriginal person has some facility with the language.
Really? Some idea. I wish we had more exposure to that. I think that's very interesting. Let's talk to Tony now in Chilliwack. Hi, Tony.
Hi.
Hi, go ahead.
I guess I'm of the white population. You know, I've been following this, what Ministry of Indian Affairs has done up to this point, and following it over a number of years, and grew up around reservations, and most of my friends are of native peoples, and culpability just doesn't start from at the level of the federal government. Culpability of what happened to these people are at all levels of government, and the healing has to start within the community itself. And when I heard this gentleman say that Canada needs to say sorry, you know, he's right. I mean, it's all of Canada.
Right.
And, you know, we have a lot of rednecks in this country. You know, we're a very charitable country to other countries, but the victimization that's caused by because of bureaucratic policy or whatever in our country doesn't just start or stop with the native people.
Right.
It happens to all races in this country, and you know, we need responsible people in government. And a good place to start, if you look at the healing circles of the native people,
Right.
we have a lot to learn from them.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I guess that's true. There are some cultural differences. And he's right. A lot of people are going to say, well, all of us become responsible for what happens from this point on.
Thank you, Tony. I think that that's exactly what Canadians need to do. They need to take responsibility for what's going on in this country. In the 1960s, I remember the debate was hot and heavy on what was going on in the south of the United States, and Canadians loved to point fingers.
Civil rights.
And say, those nasty Americans and what they're doing to the blacks. And when I raised the issue of what was going on in this country and the fact that my mother had no right to vote until 1960, and she was a woman of a large family, and was capable of raising and supporting that family,
Right.
I was told invariably to just leave that from the debate and what we would talk about in schools, the
Somewhere
situation
else.
with the blacks in the United States. As well, today, Canadians love to point at South Africa and what's gone on recently there.
Right.
And they don't like to look at themselves. So I appreciate what Tony had to say very much.
Okay. That's an interesting perspective. Let's talk to Kimberly now in Victoria. Hi, Kimberly.
Hi, I'm a recent graduate in nursing, and I just have 2 points I'd like to make. The first one is that I really do believe that the government needs to acknowledge what has happened, just so that innocent people can heal, because they've been victimized in a way that they need to be acknowledged so that they can let the healing begin.
Right.
The other point that I'd like to make is that I think that we need to look at the communities, the Native communities, and train some of the people that live in these communities to counsel those individuals, and not put other people that don't have the backgrounds, that don't have the cultural experiences of these people. We need to really look at their culture and just start training people, and also train people in the school systems and everything else, so that it's more acknowledged and it's more out there.
Okay, well, I think that education is a very important part of this. To what extent do you communicate that to some of the people who can do something about it?
Well, we've been talking to the Department of Education. We've been talking to university teachers.
Right.
We, of course, addressed these problems to former teachers at Indian residential schools. And we don't often feel like we're making headway, but having said that, you look at the First Nations House of Learning at UBC, things that are going on at places like Camosun College and UVic here in Victoria. And there is progress, and we're happy about that progress.
Okay, and then there's a public forum coming up that I want to mention to the viewers, and that we'd like you to do a reading about. And there's a public forum that's being billed on land theft, murder, and cover-up in Port Alberni. Now, interestingly enough, the forum is taking place at Simon Fraser University on the Lower Mainland. It's on Monday, February 9th at 6:30. And this forum is actually talking about people who were eyewitnesses to the murder of Native children at the Alberni Residential School, and they will testify publicly. And there will also be a former United Church minister who was fired and expelled from the church in 1995 after he helped to unearth these murders. And 3 of the Aboriginal people will be testifying. Now, when I was showing this to you before the show, you pulled out a part of your book that you wanted to share with us.
I was in the preface to the book talking about my Uncle Georgie, who was well known to people here in Victoria. George Clutis, who lived here for a number of years, author, lecturer, actor. And I quote, "Many times when we were alone, he would revisit his residential school days, and while talking, slip into a kind of psychodrama. His face would become increasingly red, the veins on his forehead and neck would bulge, so that they looked ready to pop, and his voice would increase with both pitch and volume until Uncle Georgie seemed possessed by a demon. As I recall, he would say something like, quote, 'Mr. Curry was absolutely wicked. He used to love to see us suffering. I think he was a sadist. The government put him there to teach us to keep our place, to teach us the white man is supreme.' Uncle Georgie was one of several eyewitnesses I heard in my youth recount their own experiences and memories of the time when a young boy was whipped mercilessly by H.B. Curry, principal of the school. He told me that he and another boy were called to clean up the bloody mess after Curry was through punishing the boy in the basement of the barn." Well, it goes on in some graphic detail about blood clots that look like pieces of liver. This young boy was from Comox and died, and I talk at some length in the preface about the mythologizing of that boy's death. So there are incidents where we know that children either died directly at residential schools or were beaten so violently
that they died eventually.
That they died subsequently.
Right. And in a case like that, has anyone ever been held accountable for those things?
For this particular boy's death, I know definitely there hasn't been anyone held accountable.
Right. Okay, we're going to take a break. Just before we do, though, if you'd like some more information on residential schools, or if you'd like to be part of the group of people who are trying to continue to advance this issue, you can write to Ron Hamilton at 4444 Bigmore Road. That's RR number 3, Site 304, C8, Port Alberni, BC, V9Y7L7. And the phone number is 250-729-724. Oh dear. 250-724. That's a typo. 9667. And as I say, there's that forum Monday, February 9th at 6:30 at Simon Fraser in the Fletcher Challenge Lecture Hall room, and we'll be right back.
So your hair's a little damaged? That's okay. Really damaged? Even better. Because the worse the damage, the harder this works to restore shine. Pantene Pro V Conditioner. The Pro Vitamin Complex penetrates, while the conditioning formula helps strengthen your hair. It's damage control for vulnerable ends, so they actually split less. Pantene Pro V Conditioners every day, for hair so healthy looking it shines. The worse the damage, the harder it works.
What do you love about MeTV?
For me, it's sports.
Everyone has found their favorites.
So into history.
But alas, the MeTV free preview will soon be history. So call today to order. Then you can keep on enjoying all of MeTV's 16 great channels whenever you want, wherever you want.
For me, it's comedy.
Call 1-888-ROGERS-1 to get MeTV for as little as $5.99 a month. You could even win 50 grand. Be sure to order before the preview ends.
Please call the Variety Club of BC, because all kids need help.
This station believes in being accountable to you, the viewer, in our drama, information, and entertainment programming. We are a member of the Canadian Broadcast Standards Council, and as such, are committed to the highest standards of broadcasting. If you have a comment to make about our programming, write to us. We'll respond to your letter and send you information on the Council and our codes. This message is brought to you by the Canadian Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Our question of the day today: Ottawa is paying out hundreds of millions of dollars to Native peoples for abuses in the past. Do you think this is enough to heal the wounds? And here are some comments.
I don't really feel that's enough, but I believe in equality myself. Everybody's the same.
No, I don't think it's enough. Do you want me to say more?
If you'd like to.
Well, I think that the injustice for Aboriginals is horrible, and all of society suffers from that, and the more that we can do to right that, we should get on with it.
I don't think so. I think they got the shaft in the beginning, and I think they could never be repaid for all the stuff they had to go through.
I think in some ways some of the things that they've gone a bit too far in some things, and in other ways they haven't. So I think that they have to find they haven't found the medium that I appreciate.
It seems like not a lot of people are happy with the government's record so far, and we're going to try to take as many calls as we can because we went a little long last time. So we'll start with Leanna in North Vancouver. Hi, Leanna.
Good afternoon, Judy.
Hi.
I would first off like to thank you for covering this issue.
Hi.
I would like to say that no amount of money is too much when talking about lives, especially lives that were taken at the hands of Canada and the wrongdoings that were committed. I think the government has not even come close to what they are obligated to do for First Nations people.
Okay.
I think the solution would be for them to sincerely apologize and admit to the wrongdoings in residential schools.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you for that perspective. In addition to that, now none of this money is actually going to compensate people who suffered abuse. That's a bit of a problem, isn't it?
I think it is. I think that the people who suffered at the hands of the United Church, Catholic, and other church workers in those schools, who suffered at the hands of Indian agents who repeatedly returned them to those schools, policemen who returned them, and so on. I think those people deserve the same kind of compensation the Japanese were given, that were interred.
Right, that's something that's
a personal, individual
yeah.
kind of compensation package.
It's we did a show on Jericho Hill a little while ago, and in that case the same kind of thing came up. Nobody wants to actually accept responsibility and compensate people for what's happened, or there's very little accountability. We'll take two calls back to back. First, Carol from Souk. Hi, Carol.
Hi, Judy.
Hi, go ahead.
Yes, we've got to admit our government was criminal what they did, tearing these children away from their families and putting them in these residential schools in the first place. But I have a problem that nobody seems to be holding the churches accountable. We've got to remember that in most instances they ran these schools. There was homicides, there was certainly just horrific abuse. Why are they not being held accountable also for the crimes that they've committed with these children?
Okay, well, that's a very important question. Now, my understanding was that some of the churches have actually formally apologized.
Various church bodies have apologized. I think that when we see the next spate of court cases come up, they're going to be named, those churches and the individual church workers. Their employees are going to be itemized.
Now, in those cases, the actual individuals who did it will be named.
And the churches, I believe,
yeah,
will
well,
be
the church
named
is
as
fine.
defendants.
I think it's
cases.
very important for individuals to also be named, so we know who they are.
I think they're going to be named.
Okay, so we'll watch for that. That's something you're involved in.
Yes.
Oh, so much for doing it back to back. I forgot again. Okay, let's talk to Val in Duncan. Hi, Val.
Hi, that lady took my comments word for word, I think, about the churches being held financially responsible as well.
Right.
And it wasn't just Indian children who were taken from their families. It was white children as well.
Oh.
And nothing seems to, they're not being represented at all. I know personally of some that were taken from the mainland, brought to Duncan Residential School, and the girls to Duncan, the boys to Nanaimo, and they never saw their parents for 6 or 7 years.
Wow.
And they never learned any life skills. They were abused, and it affected their lives profoundly.
Okay, well, thanks for that. I didn't realize that there were any people who were non-Aboriginal who attended as well.
I know of no non-Aboriginal people who attended Indian residential schools, and I think it's important to make clear here that we're talking about Indian residential schools. Canada constructed those schools based on the concept of race. I know that a number of children, non-Aboriginal children, were taken from their families for various reasons and sent to various institutions. But in the case of Aboriginal people, across the board, our community suffered that experience. It wasn't a few people from the community.
Right. Okay. Let's talk to Jack now in Vancouver. Hello, Jack.
Hi. I was just phoning in the first, I was flipping through and I saw Ron on, and I wanted to say it's about time the residential school was addressed, and my mother and father went through residential school, and growing up as children, we received basically the same punishment they went through, and my parents have gone through a healing process, and my sisters and brothers have forgiven them for the punishment, but it's an ongoing process for them.
Well, thank you for phoning. This healing process that a lot of people are talking about, is there something that's like a formula that people are now starting to follow to try to get back together with their families?
I think essentially people are trying to, families are trying to pull together and address issues, and precisely the same model is seems to be at the core of that healing that I was just talking about with regard to the federal government and churches. There's a description of what's taken place.
Right.
So those victimized say, you did this to me. There's an admission on the part of the perpetrator of what was done. Best if it's not tried to be soft-souled, or if there's an effort made, there's no effort made to defend the action, but simply to say, yes, I did do that.
Right.
And then hopefully a heartfelt apology. And if after that the victim, the person who the abuse was perpetrated on, has it in them, and the one doing the apology has it in them to ask, then there's forgiveness.
Okay. Now, I guess also it must be unfortunate for Aboriginal people across the country to be perceived as victims.
I think it's very unfortunate, and of course you and I both know, and most of the people listening at home today know, that there's a litany of negativity that's attached to the word Indian. We can all trounce it out, and it's long past due that it doesn't get repeated. But we all know the negative words that get attached to the word Indian. And we're not Indians. I'm a Koas.
I'm Indian.
In my language, thank you, Judy. I'm very glad to meet a real Indian. No, in my community we call ourselves Koas. In the northeast corner of Vancouver Island, they call themselves Bakwam. In the southeast corner of Vancouver Island, they call themselves Kwalmach. We have names for ourselves. An Indian
It's not
fits
one
none
of
of
them.
us.
Right.
It was a legal definition adopted by Canada to encapsulate people, including Inuit people. They were legally Indian until, I think, 1960.
Okay, we have to take a quick break. We'll be right back. We'll be taking more of your calls, and we're talking about the future of Aboriginal peoples.
When I feel fresh, I can embrace. I can share. Laugh. Reach. I can shout.
With always odor-absorbing panty liners, you're free to be and do what you choose. Only All Days panty liners have a unique core and a fresh weave cover that work together to help keep moisture and odor away from you, so you can get that always fresh feeling every day.
I can let go.
All Days panty liners from Always. Feeling fresh is being free.
Are you brushing twice a day? You could be ruining your hair. It's true. The simple act of brushing can strip away vital protein, even cause your hair to break. The solution? Pantene Pro V shampoo and conditioner to help keep your hair strong. Pantene's provitamins penetrate the root, while the conditioning formula helps improve the entire length of your hair to help keep it healthy looking, shiny and strong, so it breaks less. Pantene Pro V. For hair so healthy looking, it shines. Don't forget to brush.
There be seafood here at Thrifty Foods.
Olympic no-fat yogurt. Very healthy, and the fruit makes it very tasty. I'm always constantly on a diet, so this will really help. This is Kraft. Kraft's great, because this is the kind of stuff you can put on salads, but you can also make meals with it, like stir fries and stuff. So that's what I use.
Smiles in the aisle for you. Vancouver Island's homegrown food store. Thrifty Foods.
Imagine lacing up for the big one, putting on your game jersey, and stepping out onto the ice at GM Place.
Now you can with Skate for Hope, a 12-hour team relay, Sunday, February the 8th at GM Place.
Enjoy a great day of skating with loads of fun to raise funds for Giant Steps and the Canuck Foundation. Call to register or make a $25 donation and help needy kids across the Lower Mainland. So sharpen your skates and draft your team.
You never know who you might bump into on the ice at GM Place.
And we're talking to Ron Hamilton. We're talking about today's announcement on Aboriginal Affairs, federally still called the Department of Indian Affairs.
Yes.
And as I said to him, if you've grown up as someone who's Anglo-Indian, you don't like the confusion, that's for sure. Now this is the book that was deliberately titled Indian Residential Schools. Now this is just the Nuchalnath experience, and this is what Ron wrote. And you were saying this took 2 years of your life?
Took 2 years of my life listening to horror stories from people. All people I interviewed were from the west coast of Vancouver Island, villages scattered along the coast, and attended 8 different residential schools in British Columbia.
Wow. Okay. So that doesn't take the rest of Canada, which is...
We make no pretense that our experience is generalized across the province.
Okay. And where can we get a copy?
The Nuchalnath Tribal Council, the phone number for the book is 724-3232, and ask for Anna.
724-3232?
Ask for Anna.
Anna, okay. Let's talk to Taylor in Victoria. Hi, Taylor.
Hi, Judy.
Hi,
Ron.
Yo.
I'd just like to comment on what somebody said before was it's got to start in the healing's got to start in the community, and I believe that too.
Right.
There's so much that the residential school did to our people, and the children felt the result of it, all the anger and the hatred that the parents brought back from the abuse and everything in the residential school rubbed off on us.
Right.
And as a result of that, I could say that 80% of the people in prison systems are First Nations right now. And healing definitely has got to start with us. And
okay.
I really believe that. And
okay, well, I'm really delighted that you brought up the subject of the issue of prisons, Aboriginal people in prisons. In fact, the woman who is the head of the Aboriginal Women of Canada, when she rejected the minister's statement today, one of the things she said was that there are an enormous number of Aboriginal people in prison. What is that? Is that the cycle of violence? Is it dysfunction?
I think it's the natural end result of the marginalization of Aboriginal people in this country. It's a logical conclusion to what Canada has been doing.
Okay. I'll buy that.
That's what I think it
We'll
is.
have to
And
vote.
I think that there's a number of people who've had jail experience and Indian residential school experience who think that they're better treated in jail than in Indian residential schools.
Well, that says a lot. Let's talk to Bob now in Port Alberni, which is where Ron's from. Go ahead, Bob.
Hi.
Hi.
I just, first of all, wanted to say that I'm a non-native,
Right.
and I wasn't aware of residential schools until 1992.
Right.
And in 1995, I felt honored to participate in what they called Reclaiming Our Spirits.
Mm-hmm.
And as the only non-native that participated, I got to play the priest.
Right.
And at the end of this, it had a profound effect on me because I realized I was only role-playing, but this was their life.
Right.
And I really became aware of what some of the people had suffered in residential schools.
Right.
And now I feel that the Canadian government and people need to be held accountable for what happened in residential schools.
Right.
And young people today are still being victimized by the effects of residential schools, by alcoholism, suicides, and that's all from the effects of their parents or grandparents being in residential schools.
Well, thank you for providing us that interesting thing about role-playing. Now, what is he talking about?
He's talking about a drama wherein people from the community were asked to watch a performance that was supposed to be the experience of children in an Indian residential school.
Mm-hmm.
They watch it a second time, and while they watch it, when they see abuse taking place, they have the right to step from the audience and say, stop.
Ah, I see.
They're put in the place of the actor, and they act out what should take place.
Okay. So that was, I guess, part of understanding what had happened and then acting out some of the other options.
What should have happened.
Okay.
What could have happened. What would have been a healthier thing to have happened.
Okay, interesting. Let's talk to Paul now in Brentwood Bay. Hello, Paul.
Hi there.
Hi, go ahead.
Hi, Ron and Judy. I was wondering, I was just responding to what the prior gentleman said about, the grassroots people. In Ron's past experiences in dealing with the federal government, and in that response, the Ottawa's response, what Jane said this morning, very little dollars get actually down to
That's right.
the grassroots people.
Yeah.
And, there's always something that happens in between, Treasury Board and here, the grassroots people. And, what should we be telling our political leadership on both sides of the fence, like the Aboriginal governments and the regional federal governments, what should we be telling them right now?
Okay.
What should be happening?
That's a good question. A lot of that money is getting sucked up by the bureaucracy in the middle. What kind of message? I'm not sure to what extent you've spent time looking at that as an option.
Regarding the money being sucked up by administrative bodies, I think that what was said this morning was the money was not going to be used for compensation. And the way to address that is to create a pocket of money that would be used for compensation that will not trickle down but be given directly to the victims of those Indian residential schools.
And then they
former
can get counseling if they need it.
They can do what they want with it, I hope. I hope that if they want to go out and buy a new house, they go out and buy a new house. And if that makes them happy and makes them feel better, they should be able to do that.
Okay.
I talked to a brother of mine before I came, and he said, if I don't want to seek counseling, then I don't want to. And if I do, I'll have the money to go out and do that myself instead of the government sending me someone that they think should be counseling me.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more of your calls on Aboriginal issues.
We're gonna rock this town, rock it inside out. We're gonna rock this town, make them scream and shout. Put on your red shoes and dance the blues.
It's Rolling Stone's Sounds of the 80s, the best songs of the 80s in one complete collection. Get Rolling Stone's Sounds of the 80s for just $9.99 on compact disc or double-length cassette. More than one full hour of hits.
Another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust.
Then audition other Sounds of the 80s albums. There's no minimum to buy, cancel anytime.
Here comes the rain again.
Rolling Stone's Sounds of the 80s is not sold in stores, so don't wait. Call now.
To order Sounds of the 80s, call 1-800-417-5577. That's 1-800-417-5577. Call now or send $9.99 plus $3.50 shipping and handling to Sounds of the 80s, Department 7, Richmond, Virginia. Or call now, 1-800-417-5577.
And coming up, we'll be talking about the University Model Parliament tomorrow, and at some point, the Fletcher Challenge strike and bank profits will be coming up next week. And also on Friday, we'll be talking about baby wellness and nutrition and prenatal care and all those important things. We'll go straight back to the lines, and we will start with Bear in Port Alberni. Hi, Bear.
Hi.
Hi, go ahead.
Yeah, my question is towards Ron there. I'm wondering if anybody's taking legal actions towards themselves to the churches or the government.
Yeah, that's a good question.
There are
Rocking Ron?
There are a number of cases, Bear, before the courts, and beginning in the early weeks of February, those cases are going to be heard in Nanaimo, and they're going to attempt to establish who is liable in this case. Is Canada, is the United Church, is the Catholic Church, is the province of British Columbia liable? Are those individuals who perpetrated that abuse liable? I hope they find them all liable.
Right, okay. So we'll stay tuned for that. And now we'll talk to Belvy in Souk. Hi, Belvy.
Hi, I'd like to say hi to Ron.
Hello, Belvy.
How are you doing?
Oh, good. Eat your while.
Clement,
My old schoolmate.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Belvy.
We all went to residential school, 14 out of my family.
14?
Out of 16.
Okay.
And now there's only 6 of us left.
So you're saying there was an impact then on their lives, significant.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate that must be very difficult out of 14 for 6 to be left. In your family, a lot of people experienced this. I guess you talk about your brothers.
8 of my brothers and sisters went to Indian residential schools, and we have 2 members of my family that have gone unnaturally.
So actually, you're probably one of the more fortunate families compared to some of the statistics that are out there.
I think probably we're viewed that way by a number of people.
Still, too.
But to lose any family to alcoholism, to drug abuse, a heroin overdose hurts.
Sure it does. Even one. Okay. Let's talk to Pauline now in Surrey. Hi, Pauline.
Hi, Judy.
Hi, go ahead.
Hi, Ron.
Hello.
I'm a product of affected person who has my father was in residential school and he's still alive today, and I was really happy to hear that you have it forecast and someone's talking about this because it's part of our history of Aboriginal people.
Right.
I come from Alberta, and our residential schools were very similar to what's happened to the residential school here in BC, and like my father, experienced various different things as well, and today he still screams and kicks in his bed and sleeps, and I've listened to that all my life.
Right.
And in our areas, the residential schools they used to cook jackfish for the people and throw them right in the oven and not even scale them or take the guts out, and they just have to eat the jackfish like that, the children. And they went through, having like oatmeal with no milk when there was a lot of cows out there and no beef. And the priest used to have the beef in front of the children. When you hear that, it's so horrendous.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that you've taking the time to share that story with us. In your book, I'm sure you document quite a few things that were actually going on. It's hard to imagine that could be happening.
It is today. I think Canadians need to be aware that it did happen. It happened to thousands, hundreds of thousands of children over 4 generations. It happened right across the country.
Over 4 generations?
Over 4 generations.
My goodness.
And it happened to a lot of children, and the reason it happened was because Canada tagged them racially as Indians. That's the reason Indian residential schools happened.
Okay, now do you consider yourself Canadian?
I consider myself Koas. I'm a real, living human being.
Right. I just wonder in how we get, when we get to the next step, it sounds like you wanted to say something about the callers and the comments from the street.
Well, I wanted to comment. I think it's important for myself sitting here to acknowledge those people who spoke on the street and to acknowledge all of these lovely people who are calling in. For a big chunk of my life, I literally hated anyone who had skin that wasn't like mine, who didn't have hair like mine. I wondered for many years, where are the good people of this country? Where are the good people here? As a teenager, I hitchhiked to Alabama. I was through Louisiana. I was all through the southern United States. And I saw good, strong, intelligent, articulate, healthy, non-black people standing up beside black people and saying, we need to change the way we are. And for many years, I wondered, where are the good people in this country? Well, I want to say to the people who spoke over the phone lines on your program and to the people who spoke on the cameras in the street, those good people are starting to stand up and show their faces and be counted. And I, for one, I'm really very grateful for that.
Well, thank you very much.
It's a lovely thing that on this program I get to watch it, witness it.
Right. Well, thank you for joining us. We're actually out of time for this segment, and the lines are jammed, so we'll return to this when we know more about your court cases, and we'll be right back.
Doing what's expected is easy. Exceeding expectations is difficult. Because it takes vision and the desire to share it with others. Just as we do every day. The company is WIC. And around here, our people make ideas fly.
You know, Remy, we got way too much inventory. It's time for a January clearance sale here at Glen Oak Ford. We'll put a $1,000 cash rebate on those, and we'll get 1.9% financing on these, and we'll put Explorers on for $179 a month, and we'll sale price every new and used car on the lot. The January clearance sale is on right now at Glen Oak Ford, both locations, downtown on Douglas and on the Old Island Highway. Right, Remy? Right.
I am very honored to talk about Canadian Special Olympics and what it means to me. When I was born, my mother was told that I would never speak and should be put in a home. But Mom loved me, worked with me, and got me involved with Special Olympics. Our motto is, let me win, but if I cannot win, let me be brave in the attempt. I'd like to thank Canadian Special Olympics and my mom for believing in me. As you can see, I didn't need to be put in a home.